No, we're just doing a live shot of the building. We had cameras inside for that.
Oh, okay. This is a good spot, too.
Alright, you should be back up. I was waiting, I was timing it. See, last it was 56 and it's now 4:23, so what's that? Almost 30 minutes? Not bad, but I'll monitor it. Thank you.
Gar nicht so aufgefallen. Und auch immer diese ganz passenden Streifen. da ist der Kakao. Jetzt Mal hat er aber den von Geld gehabt. Ja, ja, nee, letztes Mal, ja, weiß ich, aber er kommt nicht, also er, das ist seine Bedingung. Ja, ich meine, das ist weiter. Steig ich wieder auf.
Manchmal auch.
Aber warum wird denn das ist egal, da gehen Leute rein. Guck mal, ich mit meiner Zahnfirma. Voll. Dankeschön. Ah, jetzt, wie du mir die gegeben hast, die ich benutzt habe, wenn du eigentlich glaubst, aber eigentlich nicht. Wie sagen meine Spezialstellen bei denen ist auch so? Muss ja nicht sein. Wie heiß ist es gerade? Kannst du das draufstehen? Und geprüft 43 hat irgendjemand gesagt. Nee, der Kollege von World Cup hat die ganze Zeit immer gesagt, geprüft 43. Ich fühle mich 45.
Ich finde das das Problem.
Okay. Das obere nur den, der letzte, machen wir dann nicht dann noch? Nö, die sind ja herrlich, die haben wir gut, die habe ich mir immer okay, also die Story. Ja, aber für die Story, dann kommt noch das Story. Das würde ich gerne noch einmal durchsagen. Ja, das meine ich doch gerade. Das mit dem Zweizeiler. Das müssen wir gleich noch machen. Das ist gleich fragen. Das ist das Story 3. Da wird uns noch das. Machen wir einmal, sagst du mal was, und dann machen wir einmal einen Test für den Ton. Mal in die andere. Nach dem Gipfel zum Jubiläum 32 Staaten und deren Chefs der NATO-Mitglieder werden hier zwei Varianten, ja? Zentraler Punkt ist Artikel. Der garantiert, durch keine Angriffen werden alle Angriffe verteidigt dann gemeinsam. Jetzt sorgt sich alles bei Ihnen, denn genauso können Sie auch NATO-Länder entscheiden.
Yeah, they're cooking right now. Do we have a timetable for today so we can make sure the camera stays on? Should we turn it off for a while? Or do you need it? Not a problem. I'll just keep monitoring it. Alright. Thank you.
Eine Million. Das ist ja mega. Oder kann der letzte Monat mit uns allen? Entschuldigung. Sorry. Ah, cool. Dann gib uns Wedding day. Mario, you're in it too. Oh, done it. One phone is great.
Okay.
Marius kommt und liest das doch, das weiß ich. Er liebt das. I know it. Hello. Olli? Hello. Was ist denn hier?
Okay, guys. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Soll ich jemanden ansehen? What's somebody on the street for $1 each?
$1 each?
That's
Talk to my producer. Thank you.
I will come over.
Island and Karen.
They're actually playing that right now. England and Netherlands are playing right now. No, tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow they're playing at the same time. Couple of years tomorrow. Well, maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Ik loop even...
Yeah, go up on your mic.
Ik loop even onder de zee.
Talk to my producer. Thank you.
I will come over.
Island and Karen.
geloof even...
Aaron, let me go up on your mic just in case.
Ik geloof even aan de zee. Dat kan wel stuur staan. Nee, dat is een standing police. Die slaat gewoon vol. Zo? Kun je meer doen? Dus dat even op terug. Ja? Ja, kan je. Anders van mij? Mooi, dit is dan... Dit vind je wel... Yeah, they follow. And sometimes it's and if you touch it up, then they'll go out and come back and do some nice stuff to that. That's it. Maybe you might have therapy to that.
Okay, they got the RF limiter in there?
I guess, right. No, right, yeah. No problem.
Island in, Aaron. They're actually playing that right now. England and Netherlands are playing right now. No, tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow. That's right, playing at the same time. Couple of years tomorrow. Well, maybe we'll see you tomorrow. Ik loop even... Aaron, let me go up on your mic just in case.
Ik loop even aan de zee. Dat kan wel stuur staan. Nee, dat is een standing police. Die slaat gewoon vol. Zo? Kun je meer doen? Dus dat even op terug. Ja? Ja, kan je. Anders van mij? Mooi, dit is dan... Dit vind je wel... deals today will get picked up and then they'll go, I don't know where that location is, here, get them here.
Level check, that's what you're G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Invités distingués, veuillez prendre vos places. Le programme commencera bientôt. Distinguished guests, please take your seats. Our program will begin momentarily. Invités distingués, veuillez prendre vos places. Le programme commencera bientôt.
Distinguished guests, welcome to the Andrew W. Mellon Auditorium for an event commemorating the 75th anniversary of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Invités distingués, bienvenue à l'Auditorium Andrew W. Mellon pour la commémoration du 75e anniversaire de l'Organisation du Traité de l'Atlantique Nord. Distinguished guests, the First Lady of the United States, accompanied by Mrs. Ingrid Schuller, and the spouses and partners of the NATO allies and partner countries. Invités distingués, la Première Dame des États-Unis, accompagnée par Madame Ingrid Schuller, et les épouses et les partenaires des pays alliés et partenaires de l'OTAN. Distinguished guests, the chiefs of delegation of the European Union, Ukraine, and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Indo-Pacific partner countries. Invités distingués, les chefs de délégation de l'Union européenne, l'Ukraine et les pays partenaires indo-pacifiques de l'Organisation du Traité de l'Atlantique Nord. Distinguished guests, the President of the United States, accompanied by the Secretary General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the NATO allied leaders. Invités distingués, le Président des États-Unis, accompagné par le Secrétaire Général de l'Organisation du Traité de l'Atlantique Nord et les alliés OTAN. Distinguished guests, the NATO allies. Invités distingués, les alliés OTAN.
The day of days for America and her allies. Celebrations throughout the country at the end of the greatest war in history.
In April 1949, 12 nations came together in Washington to sign the North Atlantic Treaty.
The Russians had not demobilized. They retained overwhelmingly the largest force in Europe.
From Budapest come the first pictures of the battle which has shaken the world.
In Berlin, bricks, mortar, wire make up what decent people call the wall of shame.
More Russian troops were on Czechoslovak soil than were Americans in Vietnam.
It appears military forces are crossing the border.
A platoon of troops deployed this morning around the main airport in Crimea.
President Putin ordered atrocious acts of aggression against innocent people.
What does it really mean to be a good friend? To be there for somebody else. To know that they will be there for you. To have each other's backs. But we all know that true friendship is not that simple. There's more to it than that. There's more demanded of you than that.
In this treaty, we seek to establish freedom from aggression. To protect this area against war will be a long step toward permanent peace in the whole world.
Friendship starts out as a promise we make to each other and to ourselves.
Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
It's a pledge to take the other's interests as seriously as you take your own.
We are determined to resist aggression, whatever its force, and whatever kind of force is needed to resist it.
Over time, it creates an unbreakable bond, an alliance, partnerships. That alliance becomes an identity, an expression of who we are as people. Those partnerships make us all stronger. There's a moral compass at work that not only guides us, it's on display for all the world to see.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
The dangers of acting are far outweighed by the dangers of not acting. Dangers to defenseless people and to our national interests.
NATO is a defense alliance. NATO has no intention of attacking anybody. It's to increase the
Distinguished guests, Master Sergeant Byro Buzaiko, United States Marine Corps. Invité distingué, Maître Sergent Byro Buzaiko, fusilier marin des États-Unis.
Tonight we gather to celebrate resilience, courage, and the power of transformative experiences. Mr. President, leaders, and distinguished guests, my own journey has been shaped by two profound chapters: my father's survival in a concentration camp and my service in the Marine Corps. These experiences have instilled in me resilience, offered invaluable perspective, and deepened my appreciation for life's complexities. They underscore the importance of individuals who their courage and sacrifice go beyond the call of duty. Tonight, as we come together to honor such remarkable stories and achievements, let us be inspired by the profound impact one person's journey can have on shaping our world. It is my privilege to introduce and welcome one of those individuals this evening, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, a distinguished leader who has shaped the course of NATO's history. Secretary General Stoltenberg has served as NATO Secretary General since October 2014. Across a career that has included service as Prime Minister of Norway and UN Special Envoy for Climate Change, Secretary General Stoltenberg has shaped the global response to the most pressing challenges of our day. His tenure at NATO has been marked by groundbreaking initiatives. Under his leadership, NATO has implemented its largest reinforcement of collective defense since the Cold War, enhancing readiness to address terrorism, cyber threats, and hybrid warfare. Secretary General Stoltenberg's leadership underscores the importance of unity and commitment among allies, ensuring NATO remains at the forefront of global security challenges. Please join me in welcoming Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg.
Thank you. President Biden, heads of state and government, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor to be with you here today, and it's good to see so many friends. 75 years ago, in this very room, NATO's founding document, the Washington Treaty, was signed. Our alliance was created by people who had lived through two devastating world wars. They knew only too well the horror, the suffering, and the terrible human cost of war. They were determined that this should never happen again. So they founded NATO with a clear purpose: to preserve peace and safeguard freedom. A solemn promise, an ironclad commitment to protect each other. One for all and all for one. I have great respect for the Washington Treaty, not least because it is so short. Just 14 paragraphs, only a few pages. Never have so few words meant so much to so many. Peace has been preserved, freedom has been safeguarded. That makes NATO the most successful alliance in history. When I arrived at NATO 10 years ago, I was told that while it may be the most successful alliance in history, it was not the longest lasting. That honor belonged to the Delian League of ancient Greek city-states. But the League lasted 74 years. So in this 75th anniversary of our alliance, we can finally say that NATO is not only the most successful and the strongest, but also the longest lasting alliance in history. To understand the enduring success of NATO, it is important to recognize our transatlantic alliance was never a given. On the contrary, it is a result of deliberate choices and difficult decisions. Starting with NATO's creation. After World War II, many Americans wanted to leave Europe and bring their boys back home, just as the United States did after World War I. Fortunately, this time, courageous leaders on both sides of the Atlantic were able to defy opposition and create a transatlantic alliance to deter the Soviet threat. Gradually, a bold and controversial idea emerged that we needed to talk to our enemy to minimize the risk of an arms race spiraling out of control and leading to nuclear Armageddon. Step by step, to difficult talks and hard negotiations, an architecture of arms control was agreed. Thousands of weapons were destroyed, transparency and trust built. The world became a safer place due to deterrence and defense, but also due to disarmament and dialogue. And in time, the Cold War ended without NATO firing a shot. This opened an historic window of opportunity and brought us to another critical decision: whether to enlarge NATO and welcome all adversaries as new allies. The countries of the former Warsaw Pact had already made their choice. They all wanted to join our alliance. Towering personalities like Lech Walesa and Václav Havel led the way. The question was whether we were ready to open our door. Some feared that enlargement would dilute and weaken NATO and provoke Moscow. Just as at previous crossroads, it was not an obvious choice. It was not an easy decision, and it took time. But in the end, we stood up for the right of every nation to choose its own path. We opened NATO's door. Hardly any decision in modern history has changed Europe more profoundly. NATO enlargement unified Europe in a way that was previously unthinkable, paved the way for EU integration, and brought peace and prosperity across the continent. Allies showed clarity and determination then, as we must continue to do now. Russia's war against Ukraine is the biggest security crisis in generations. Ukraine has shown remarkable courage, and NATO allies have provided unprecedented support. But let's be honest, not even our support for Ukraine has been a given. It is not straightforward, because our support comes with costs and risks. The reality is there are no cost-free options with an aggressive Russia as a neighbor. There are no risk-free options in a war. And remember, the biggest cost and the greatest risk will be if Russia wins in Ukraine. We cannot let that happen. Not only would it embolden President Putin, it will also embolden other authoritarian leaders in Iran, in North Korea, and China. They all support Russia's brutal war. They all want NATO to fail. So the outcome of this war will shape global security for decades to come. The time to stand for freedom and democracy is now. The place is Ukraine. Over the last 75 years, the transatlantic relationship has weathered many storms. We are bound together not only by interests, but also by history, tradition, and values. But our alliance should not be taken for granted. It was not a given in 1949. It is not a given now. And it will not be a given in the decades to come. Everyone in this room has the responsibility as political leaders, as experts, as citizens. We must show the same courage and determination in the future as was demonstrated in the past when NATO was founded and shaped. The future of our alliance depends not least on our men and women in uniform. They put their lives on the line each and every day to keep us safe. Yesterday, I laid a wreath at Arlington National Cemetery to pay my respects for those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. We owe them an eternal debt of gratitude. We honor them all. Mr. President, dear friends, our alliance is not perfect, and we will continue to face difficult decisions in the future. I do not know what the next crisis will be, but I do know that we are at our best when we take difficult decisions with political courage and moral clarity. And I know that we are stronger and safer together in NATO. It is good to have friends. Thank you.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm,
Distinguished guests, the President of the United States. Invité distingué, le Président des États-Unis.
Welcome. In 1949, the leaders of 12 countries, including President Truman, came together in this very room. History was watching. It had been 4 years since the surrender of the Axis powers and the end of the most devastating war the world had ever known. Here, these 12 leaders gathered to make a sacred pledge to defend each other against aggression, provide their collective security, and to answer threats as one, because they knew to prevent future wars, to protect democracies, to lay the groundwork for lasting peace and prosperity, they needed a new approach. They needed to combine their strengths. They needed an alliance. And here they signed the Washington Treaty and created the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the single greatest, most effective defensive alliance in the history of the world. Mr. Secretary General, leaders of NATO countries, foreign and defense ministers, representatives from partner nations and the European Union, and members of Congress, distinguished guests, welcome, welcome to the 2024 NATO Summit. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to host you in this milestone year, to look back with pride at all we've achieved and look ahead to our shared future with strength and with resolve. Together, we rebuilt Europe from the ruins of war, held high the torch of liberty during long decades of the Cold War. When former adversaries became fellow democracies, we welcomed them into the alliance. When war broke out in the Balkans, we intervened to restore peace and stop ethnic cleansing. And when the United States was attacked on September 11th, our NATO allies, all of you, stood with us, invoking Article 5 for the first time in NATO history, treating an attack on us as an attack on all of us, a breathtaking display of friendship that the American people will never, ever forget. Through all this history, when great changes occurred, people would ask, can NATO adapt? And every time we proved we could adapt, and we did, evolving our strategies to stay ahead of threats, reaching out to new partners to increase our effectiveness. And here with us today are countries from the Indo-Pacific region. They're here because they have a stake in our success, and we have a stake in theirs. Today, NATO is more powerful than ever, 32 nations strong. For years, Finland and Sweden were among our closest partners. Now they have chosen to officially join NATO, and because of the power and meaning of Article 5 guarantee, that's the reason. It was the most important aspect of the alliance in 1949, and it is still the most important aspect. I'd also note, Finland and Sweden joined the alliance not just because their leaders sought it, because their citizens call for it in overwhelming numbers. Remember, NATO's character is fundamentally democratic, always has been and always must continue to be. And today, NATO is better resourced than it ever has been. I want to pause on this because it's significant. In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies are spending 2% of their defense GDP on defense. This year, 23 will spend at least 2%. And some will spend more than that. And the remaining countries that have not yet reached that milestone will get there soon. This remarkable progress, proof that our commitment is broad and deep,